So that's where we'll start today, is the front controller review. But I think actually I take it back. The place I think I really want to start is I'm going to go ahead and do a quick review of discussions and issues, and see if there's anything that really needs some attention. So there we go. Let's dive in. All right. So discussions. A couple discussions that need attention. These all have my face on them and one reply, so those are probably okay, but I'm going to pop them up just in case. But there's two new ones since last time, 5 days ago, 4 days ago. Okay, so that's fine. That doesn't need attention. This is still waiting for I think I'm going to end up marking that one as answered. And assembly runner, Azure functions. Yep, this is just an answer that has not been acknowledged yet, so that's fine. Problem analyzes 0.10.0 when installing via upstream feed. Following latest recommendations, we're no longer using public library. So we only use our private feed. We add NuGet.org as an upstream package link. This works fine for everything we need, that is, except for the most recent XUnit analyzers package. Cannot find any explanation for this. Anybody know what's happening? I do not. I would suggest enlisting the help of either the NuGet team or the owners of your upstream package feed in Azure DevOps. Okay. How to use two or more custom fact attributes? Is there some guideline or examples on how to use two custom fact attributes? For example, the following code doesn't compile, complaining that test methods cannot have multiple fact or theory attributes. Yes. You cannot mix these like this. Each fact-derived attribute has a discoverer attached to it that is also responsible for understanding how to run the test. Having two of these would at best run the test twice, once with each behavior. You need a new custom fact attribute, fact-derived attribute, and discoverer and runner, which exhibits the behavior you want, the combined behavior you want. Okay, that looks like it for that. All right, issues. Looks like we've got 4 that don't have anything on them yet. XUnit assembly runner does not release the test assembly after usage. Keeps file lock on this assembly. Okay. We'll go ahead and we'll call this a core framework. No. A runner utility bug. Warning ED001. The analysis of XUnit analyzers assert equal literal blah 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 store an exception of system null reference. Getting these exceptions thrown by the 0.10.0 analyzer on Microsoft Visual Studio Enterprise 2019 version 16.8.5. 16.8.5. What are we using? 16.8.5. Do you have an example project which repros the issue? That's really what it comes down to. We need a repro project. We use the analyzers in XUnit itself. Let's see. I'm not 100% sure though. No, I don't see it there. Maybe we don't. At some point I thought we did. Weird. All right, well. If we get a repro project, we'll see if we can figure out what this is. Use fact false to skip a temporary test method. This is a method specifically shown in the list of third-party tools. Yeah. This. Right. So I'm going to put core framework. This is a feature that is by design. Okay. Feature request. Parallel execution inside a single test class. Let's see. I feel like we have a couple of issues around this already. This feels like a dupe of this. I did not mean to hit bold, just meant to hit paste. Yeah, I think that's correct. Yes. This is core framework, dupe, feature. Okay, that's issues. Left this one without a label because just kind of waiting for a response, I guess. Let's see. Wait for exit async extension method for process. Okay. Really don't know what that's about. Nullable cast fix over here. That seems unrelated. Okay. Async awaiting on process exit. Task delay can throw exceptions in case where token has been canceled. Try catch it to return false instead of exception. Typo message. Oh, these are obviously commit messages. What? V32. Wow. So nobody should be putting PRs on that branch. Right, because it's already got conflicts. Of course it's got conflicts. That's my branch to mess around with as I see fit. Message. Wait for exit async. Where are you using this? Oh, this is why it's on that branch. Yeah, you don't need to put this comment here. Um, mm, thanks for this. This branch isn't particularly ready for people to contribute to it yet. But at some point, I may reach in and cherry pick the pieces I want to reuse. If you don't mind me leaving this open. Okay. So there's that. Console colors for concurrency handling. Didn't we do this? Why do I feel like we did this already? Oh, this is for V2. Right. This is the V2 backport for that. Okay. Nullable cast. J. Marolf. In a future version of the compiler, this cast is a warning. This resolves the warning for that case. So this definitely came up. Really not clear what the change is here. Oh, you put extra spaces on the end? Yeah. I really need to find a way to run the .NET format. This actually came up with .NET format as something that this is going to be a failure later, but I also feel like if I try and do it now, it's going to be an issue. This is 34 of the assert equality compare adapter. Quality compare adapter. Right. So this is the problem with taking this fix, is that yeah. Okay. That's better. Okay. So it needs to look like this instead. Alright, so this is PR46. We'll go over to, well, let's just open up a new one. XUnit assert. Make sure we have the latest. Remote add PR46. That one. Copy link location. Fetch PR46. Switch to patch 1. Alright. Okay, so Yeah. Oh, he did that correctly. I just didn't notice that he did it correctly because I got thrown off by the tab. Okay, so we'll just fix the tab then. Easy enough. All right, just a white space diff. Remove trailing white space. Push. Refresh. Better. All right, now I see the change a little more clearly. Squash and merge. We don't need any of that. That's good enough. Thanks. Okay. So what that means is back to main. Let's delete the patch 1 branch. Let's remove the PR46 remote. We'll pull, so we got latest. Source, xunit v3, assert, asserts. There's a diff here? Oh yeah, the diff I just made. Hello. Get fetch. Reset hard, origin main. Okay. Alright, just the new thing. Let's do a .NET format. As long as we're here pulling new asserts, let's make sure nothing in the assert library actually needs to be reformatted right now. In case I missed anything hopping in like that. Okay. Latest assertions. Whoops. I'll push that up. I haven't run on Linux in a while. Seems like a good time to fire up Wizzle and pull dev and make sure that it runs correctly. Okay. While that's running in the background, I think that's it for PRs here. Yeah, that's it for PRs here. Okay. Very good. So we'll go ahead and let this run. While that's running, let's talk about what is next. So if I come look at IFrontController, that's the big change today. Right, look at this description. Represents a class which can act as a front controller for unit testing frameworks. This class allows runners to run tests from multiple unit test frameworks, in particular hiding the differences between XUnit v1, v2, and v3 tests. Reasonable. So the implementations of this are the classes that we call XUnit1, XUnit2, along with XUnit2 Discoverer, and XUnit3, which isn't here because it's in that other branch. But the implementation of XUnit3 also needs to obey this. So one of the things I want to do is I want to divorce us from these implementations, right? These implementations are the things I want the actual frameworks themselves to implement. So if I look at iTest Framework Discoverer and I look at the references, Um, right, so we've got Test Framework Discoverer and XUnit Test Framework Discoverer, which derives from it. Right, those are the classes that are the internal implementations of these things. And so when somebody wants to add custom discovery logic, by which I mean, hey, here's an assembly, go find tests for me. Right, this is what they implement. So XUnit Test Framework Discoverer. All right, XUnit Test Framework Discoverer goes and looks for things that looks for classes that have a fact attribute on them, or something that derives from fact attribute. Aaron Boss, first timer here. Thanks for XUnit. It's a joy to work with. What are you using for your PWSH prompt? An excellent question. So let me send you over here to my website. My one blog post, Anatomy of a Prompt for PowerShell. This is a custom PowerShell that I have written using PoshGit and then a bunch of other stuff I wrote myself. And so you can see here's a dark and a light variant of everything. So if you come to this website, you can see I sort of walk through all the components, and then I walk through how each thing is added. But this link right here that says the full files, including Ubuntu icon, is available here in this gist. If you come over to this gist, this will give you this profiles JSON actually looks pretty old. I should take a note to update. Update. Nope. To get a newer profiles JSON. Profiles? Did I just type projects? And it's profiles, right? Profiles. But I'll show you where to get a newer one of that. So it's got the profiles JSON with all my colors in it, and there's the icon. So I'll get a new one of these up there. And then the other thing is it's going to show you stuff to put in your profile PS1. And so I start by constructing all of that. But if you go to the bottom of this, we have downloadable files. You can take a fully formed version of profile PS1 and VS1 from another gist, which is this is the final version of my profile PS1 that I used to create this prompt. And then this blog post walks through what each piece of this does and why it exists. So there you go. That's that. All right. Let's minimize everybody. All right. Let's come back and see how our compiles were working okay. Good. You can go away. All right. So XUnit Test Framework Discover is the thing that eventually is responsible for finding all the classes that have fact attributes decorated on their test methods and exposing those as tests. Right, the definition of what does it mean to be a test is sort of encompassed in the two phases here, the discovery phase and the execution phase, which is the executor. So if we come look at these interfaces, iTest Framework Discover has some metadata about it. What is the actual the target framework that your test is targeted against? What's the unique ID for the test assembly? What is the test framework that assembly is linked against? So the reason that comes up is our runner libraries are both backward and forward. Within the current major version, they're forward, but backward all the way to 1.0. Our runner libraries can run tests written in anything. So you could take a v3 runner library and run v1 tests with it. And in fact, I do. You just didn't see it here because we skipped them on Linux because we didn't support Linux, but our build actually validates that that stuff is still working by running v1 and v2 tests with a v3 runner. It just doesn't do it on Linux. v3 is officially supported on Linux with Mono if you're still using .NET Framework, so there is that. And then there's two find operations, and this is actually the beginning of my issue, really. Is one is go find everything, and one is go find everything in one type. This is a weird delineation that has existed for a long time, but the other half that I think is missing here from a performance perspective is if I go look at console runner, it doesn't really matter which, we'll go look at the inproc one. And we'll go look at execute assembly, and what we'll see is that we go get the test discoverer, and we discover tests, and then we filter them. And I believe this is actually a really bad place to filter the tests. The reason is you could have 1,000 tests, you could have 10,000 tests, you could have 100,000 tests, and if you only want to run 50 of them, right? We're still getting all 100,000 test cases over here in order to filter them. And this discoverer where we discover for a type is kind of like a sort of pseudo way of filtering, although, hey, my face is missing. I hit the wrong button. Nice. Yeah, so you can sort of see that this version of find here with a type is like a sort of a pseudo style of filtering where you can just say, hey, I'm only interested in this one type. As it turns out, we don't use this very often. We use it in very, very specific places. In particular, we use it in the test-driven.net runner, but that's pretty much it. Nobody else uses this. Assembly runner sort of re-exposes this ability, but in general, I think what I want here is a find version where you can pass the filter along to find and let find figure out how to filter that. I think that's what I want to do here. Now the TDNet runner is kind of an interesting one where they say, hey, go find based on type, because the test-driven net runner, if you're not familiar with it, like what you could do, and this won't work right now, but it's okay. You can come in here and you can say Boolean assert test. You can see this is a test, right? And you could just say run test. And it'll realize that that is in this false class, and it'll try to find the tests in that false class. So this is broken because obviously the thing we're trying to do right now is implement XUnit v3 support and runner utility. So it doesn't actually work at the moment. But you can see here that the TDNet runner helper and TDNet runner, these are the things that are sort of interesting to us. So run member here in TDNet runner, run member, goes and finds the class. Because run member could be a class, it could be a method. So it could run a class, could run a method. And this allows us to run a very limited amount of stuff. So I think if we had a generalized filtering system, that would be more useful. And we can cut the number of signatures from 2 to 1. I think this could potentially help everybody, but it's definitely going to help v3 because we can pass these filters along to the other process and ask the other process to do the filtering for us and only send us back the test cases that are interesting. So what's the other half of IFrontController? The other half of IFrontController is execution. And execution right now is a run all or run just these tests. I'm not 100% sure if I want to keep this either. Because run all is a bit of a weird thing, right? Like if you look at run tests, the 3 parameters are what tests do you want to run, where do you want me to send messages, and what are the options you want me to use while running them. But run all is where do you want me to send the messages, because obviously you want to run them all, but also what are the options you want me to use for discovery and execution. So I kind of feel like I want to get rid of run all, or I want to do run all in a different way. I'm not 100% sure yet what exactly that's going to look like. But certainly the first version would be find with filtering and then run the list of things that came back. Um, what's kind of interesting about that is do you really need, like, there's two reasons to find tests. One is you need to populate a UI like Test Explorer in Visual Studio, at which point you have no idea what they intend to run. So you give them the whole list, usually unfiltered, although they could have set up filters, but usually unfiltered. You give them the whole list, and then they can either say, hey, go run everything, which degenerates down into a call like this, which, by the way, will cause us to rediscover, which is in and of itself a small problem, which we should probably talk about. Or, as a user, you say, hey, run this one test, or run this one class, or run this small subset, in which case they pass us a list of the test cases to run. The other reason you might want to call find, though, is because, like in the console runner case, where you want to find the tests and then immediately you want to turn around and run them. And so what I'd like, I think, is run all probably, where's executor? Run all probably needs to be just like the find with a filter, where you say, hey, go find and run. And maybe that's what it should be called, is find and run. So that's kind of what I was thinking there, was find and run. So these separate interfaces, I don't think, what's kind of interesting is that we have XUnit2 CS and then XUnit2 Discoverer. And now these are runner side, so these implement Test Framework Discoverer, and in the case of XUnit2, it says it's a front controller because it derives from Discover, but also implements the execution APIs. And the value here is actually contained in the constructors. So the normal constructor for XUnit2 Discoverer says one of two things, which is either give me an assembly info, and this is our abstraction across assemblies that allows source-based discoverers to discover tests before they're compiled. So you pass us an assembly info. That's the public constructor. There's also an internal constructor where you pass us actually an assembly file name. So there's an assembly on disk. And this is valuable separation in my mind, because we want runner authors, particularly runner authors who want to do source-based discovery, to be able to pass us just assembly info to do the discovery, which is not necessarily sufficient for doing discovery, or is not sufficient for doing execution. Sorry. We need an actual assembly file on disk to do execution, right? We can't just execute the source code. Somebody's got to compile it. Although, interestingly here, having an assembly file name, meaning having an assembly on disk, isn't necessarily the interface we want either. We would like to be able to just get past an assembly. And I think today, if we go look at XUnit IFrontController, if this is not already done, it will be done soon, which is you pass us a project assembly, right? And inside the project assembly, you need to give us an assembly. You don't necessarily have to give us an assembly file name. If you don't, like, you'll see what we do here with assembly display name, which is dynamic. So we want to be able to support dynamic assemblies as well. So we don't necessarily want to assume that we have an assembly on disk. That's not something we can go back and backport for XUnit v2, but we can definitely do that for XUnit v3. But I don't know that these classes need to be separated. I definitely think we need to have like a discovery constructor and an execution constructor. And if you try and run anything after you call the discovery constructor, what it should do is just yell at you and say, hey, this just doesn't work. So even though this is two interfaces and two classes today, I don't think that we have to use both. And so I think some of this is, I think we just start copying things over to front controller and get rid of this test framework discoverer and test framework executor dependencies. And actually just put everything here. This is, I think, the place to start. And we'll see what that breaks before we start changing any signatures. In theory, everybody should kind of work. All right. Test assembly does not contain type. Okay, right. So XUnit 1 is implementing these explicitly. That's fine. Great. Thanks. Thanks, Visual Studio. My guess is we probably need to restart Visual Studio because of that one. Okay, I think that's all the red dots. All right, we'll go ahead and restart Visual Studio. Oh, it just occurred to me that I have a .NET version on my prompt that's not in my blog post yet. Let's see, prompt PS1. Throw that over here. That's a pretty easy one. I need to make sure to get that updated. Put that in my list to-do list. And update profile PS1 with .NET SDK version. So there you go. There's how we do the .NET SDK version. This stuff's pretty simple when it comes right down to it. Just a matter of getting it into your prompt environment. Okay. Go away, go away, go away. Let's just go ahead and run the assert test just to make sure they still work. We don't expect anything in v3 to be broken because we didn't really touch anything affected v3, but now let's go ahead and do a build test v1. Make sure we didn't break v1 tests. Actually, let's go ahead and do test v1 and test v2 all at the same time. It's a pretty good sign. The discovery works. Execution worked. That's an even better sign. Here, let's run 32-bit. Good signs, good signs. Okay, so that didn't break anything. I was hoping that wouldn't break anything. That's a pretty small change, so basically just changing a definition of front controller and then updating the explicits on xunit1. So let's go ahead and commit that. That's a nice small change. Oh, run .NET format, mixed curlifs and line feeds. Okay. Okay. That's the first step. So now we could start the methods. We really want to change them all. So I think the first thing is to sort of define what it is we want the next version of these methods to be, and then we can start deprecating the other ones. So find is, so we want discovery options. We would want actually the discovery options. Yeah, we can't mess with that. That's just strings. Is it just filters? I mean, I'm reluctant to just, I could just do this. I'm sort of reluctant to do that. Like, it feels like these things get sort of melted in together. And in fact, we could sort of merge all of these together, couldn't we? Although, kind of want this to just be message sync. So front controller's here. If I were to add a class for this, let's call this front controller discovery settings. This is just an XUnit namespace, right? So I basically want that, I think. And we'll call it settings. Settings used by the test framework during discovery. I'll just call it just during discovery. I don't want to imply they're used by the test framework because that comment came from I test framework discoverer. And then at some point we will want to obsolete these to the point where we can just delete them. But I think this is the first step, which is to say I need I test framework discovery options as options. We will go fix that in a second, and then you would be filters. XUnit filters, filters, and I test framework discovery options, options. Question is, maybe I should just have these be static. Not static, sorry. Maybe I should just have these be read-only. Let's start with that. Let's do it this way. Oh yeah, that doesn't. Let's see. You need to be. I forget what this is. Test, framework, options. For discovery. Actually, let's look for it this way. For discovery, test framework options. That's from options JSON. So these methods really manufacture one of these as opposed to set one up. I mean, we might need to change that if this is the direction we're going to go. But the end is these are just, they new up test framework options, which is fine. Do I not have access to the constructor? Yeah. Just pass through test framework for discovery or execution. This is in runner common, this is in runner utility, so internal wouldn't even help necessarily. I guess I could use one of these to start with and just do for discovery with null configuration. To start with. Okay. Put some empty summaries on here so that XML docs don't complain. And then we've got places that don't implement this yet. That's true. So IFrontController, you're going to be number 1. Generally speaking, these just forward on into their counterparts. Okay. The other one's going to be XUnit1 and XUnit2. Which both of you can do a not impl for the moment. That's fine. XUnit1 has been doing this explicitly. Let's go find the right place for it. It should be above all the other finds or below all the other finds. I don't know. Guess here is fine. And a not impl will be fine. Once we do our guards. And let's see. That also means XUnit2 needs this. Oh, it's not XUnit2 that's the problem, actually. It's XUnit2 Discoverer. Which you can stop being an iTest Framework Discoverer now. All right, where's find? Inherent doc. Do a couple of guards. Xunit 2, you were just now front controller. Okay, good. So, if I were to implement this, what does it look like? So today, if I run Xunit 2 tests, we can do V1. Let's actually start with V1. So there's V1. All right, let's replace release with debug because we're going to be doing debug builds. And app domains required, the XML and the HTML we don't care about. We want to get debug builds. We need to reload these because I have unloaded them. And let's do our debug build. And now I can unload them again. But what I want to do is I want to go look for tests to make sure that I can do this. So namespace xunit1 contains test collection tests. Let's make sure that I can run that as is. That's everybody. Class xunit1 dot contains tests collection tests. That's a plus sign, not a dot. Okay, run 6 tests. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks good. Should we find something with a theory? Maybe we should find something with a theory. Xunit1 extensions, theory acceptance tests. Let's try that. Theory acceptance tests. 4 tests. 1, 2, 3, 4. Although the theories are all in here. But I like it because they're acceptance tests. They're not the code-based acceptance tests, though, are they? I don't know if we did that in V1. Anyway, this is good enough. We can see the filtering is happening here. So, if I were to move filtering elsewhere, we can go ahead and unload these now. Actually, I'll leave them loaded for a moment. Well, let's go to Xunit 1. Everybody else can close. So if I were to do this with settings, which is discovery options and filters, right? Simple implementation here would be to do a find and then filter on the way back. So let's do this. Filtering message sync. New filtering message sync. Find. I want to go here to, filter. Actually, I think it's already here. I don't think I need a filtering message sync at all, do I? I should be able to say find filter, source information, message sync. We don't have discovery options. Why don't we have discovery options? Interesting. V1 doesn't use discovery options? It might not use discovery options. Just for whether or not we want source information. So we've got diagnostic messages, source information, internal diagnostics, method display. Yep, can't. Method display options, can't. Pre-enumerate, can't. So a lot of this stuff can't be done on V1. Okay, so this would be settings, filters, filter. And then that would be settings, options. And then lastly would be our message sync. So now we need to have our console runner calling this version of find. All right, that's the other thing we need. That's this console runner. Let's look for calls to .find. Discovery sync, discovery options. We have filters somewhere, right? What I feel like is... Actually, let's do this. Front controller, discovery settings. Let's do this instead. Let's just make you provide these to us. That'll be the easiest thing right now. This options is guard. Name of options. Options. Don't need a this dot. Filters is guard argument not null. Name of filters. Filters. Yep, okay. That's fine. So when I come over here to console runner, settings will be a new front controller, discovery settings, for discovery options, and filters come from here. All right. So I want you to discover with those settings. Which means test cases discovered, test cases to run. These are things we don't get back now, is it? Aren't they? It's true. Those are things we don't get back. Test cases discovered. Discovery sync, test cases count. Actually, I'm going to leave that the way. That was dumb. I don't know why I did that. That's fine. Discovered. I'm going to use that in both places. But this probably needs to go away. This probably goes away unless we update front controller to return filtering information. Which we might be able to, because we could change the shape of discovery complete. Actually, let's do that. But I'll put the to-do here. Update discovery complete message to include this. Because what we do here with the discovery sync, we wait for a discovery complete message, which looks like I test discovery. No, discovery complete. What are you called? Yeah, just discovery complete. And it has nothing in it. But we could put metadata in here. So update that to include metadata. Actually, what if I put test cases to run here again? And instead we will do test cases discovered. We don't need to filter them. They're just the test cases. Okay. Now let's see what happens. Okay, let's try and run just plain v1 tests. Value cannot be null, filters. Internal diagnostics, so we can get a stack trace. Console runner 418. That's weird. Copy full path. Why wouldn't filters be valid here? I'm very confused. Very confused. Okay, you're our new startup project. Okay. Assembly's not null. Assembly configuration's not null. Assembly filters are not null. I don't understand why that thing yelled at me about it being null. Am I losing my mind? There's got to be something wrong in that code. guarantee there's something wrong in this constructor. Like I have a miscapitalization, like a little f. Yep, that's what the problem is. Yep, thank you, Aaron Boss. You caught it before I did. All right. Okay, so that ran everything. That's a good sign. Let's run our theory acceptance tests. We should get 4 tests. Okay, so that was pretty painless, right? That was pretty painless. For X Unit 1. Now, right now, I expect X Unit 2 to be broken. Let's go to X Unit V2 test, bin debug net 452, X Unit V2 tests. App domains required. Yep, so there's our not impl, because we're calling the version of find that's not implemented by XUnit 2 yet. Go ahead and turn on internal diagnostics. Diagnostics. Wow, I just can't type today. Just to get our stack trace, just so we know for sure that this is XUnit 2 Discover, the new find. Yep. Okay. Off to XUnit 2 Discover. So let's go find our find method. So this may, let's see, remote discover, find, create and optimize remote message sync, XUnit 2 options adapter. So this is approximately what we wanted to do. Let's put this in here right now. It doesn't include any filtering yet. Right? But let's at least make sure it still works now. Build, 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 build. Okay, that seems to do its thing. Let's go find a test, a single test. And here's where we expect it not to work, right? XUnit 2 theory acceptance tests. Theory tests. Okay. Theory tests. It's going to run everything again. Okay, so we just need to get filtering in here. And so the answer to that is going to be here we need to start with a message sync that filters. Right. So you're expecting an iMessage sync. Okay. We're going to put you up there. So your constructor is going to take at least an iMessage sync, which is the inner message sync, but probably also XUnit filters, or maybe the filter signature. We can just go steal that from here, which is just predicate. All right. Field. Field. And then our on message will basically be if message is not var. Discovered. Test case discovered. Our default behavior is to forward this on to the inner message sync. Wrong message sync. Okay, so if you're a discovered message, and if we choose to filter you out, then we just say keep on keeping on. Is that what you're upset about? No, that's not what you're upset about. Oh, this needs to be a return. Okay. Settings, filters, filter. Okay, in the music section today, we are now in Grosse Point Blank. Faith No More. Love Faith No More. Anyway, if you're following along on the music, that's where I am. Okay, that built. And do we filter now? 7 test cases. That certainly looks right. That's a lot fewer than I expected all to be, right? So there's 1, 2. Actually, there it is. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just for fun, just because we didn't do this before, but I also don't expect this to be a case of not actually running them, but, you know. Never assume anything, right? There you go. There's our failure. So if that's our new version of find, let's see. Let's go back to the front controller. We have 2 more runners we haven't done yet. Maybe 3. Yeah, 3. No, just 2. Should be the MS build runner and a TDNet runner. Probably still have references to these old finds. So there's TDNet and there's MS build. And then we've got tests. So X unit 1. And there's X unit 2 discover. There's our implementation. And the front controller and the assembly runner. Oh yeah, the assembly runner is technically another runner. It's just kind of a weird runner, which is a runner API itself. All right, so if I just, comment this out, let's see how much stuff falls over. All right, you can go away. XE2 Discoverer. There's a version of find here that we don't need anymore, which is discovery options. And then the front controller, which is doing the forwarding. Doesn't need that anymore. That's interesting. These were virtual. I guess this one should be virtual too. I expect they're virtual because of testing. Then we have assembly runner. So this API, which by the way, this assembly runner, really wouldn't mind like gutting it and redoing it entirely. At the moment, you can ask for a type. You have no other filtering mechanism here. And I don't even think there's an explicit find operation here. There's really just start. Yep. So we can manufacture a filter from this. So we'll say filters is a new XUnit filters. Settings is a new front controller discovery settings, discovery options, and then filters. And here we can say this is type names not null, then filters dot included classes, add the type name. And then we just do this with settings. So that should fix that. Okay. TDNet runner needs to get fixed. This is just a straight up discover. Front controller discovery settings. Here are my options. And then empty filters are fine. And if empty filters are fine, maybe we should make them optional. I mean, I guess I could make them both optional, right? And just fill in with, nah. Yes, actually. Okay. That means you can just be this. And you'll do a discover based on settings. Okay, so that's good enough for now. Here's the MS build runner. Controller discovery settings, discovery options, and the filters are assembly, configuration, filters, filter, no, just filters. Okay, and now we've got tests. For the moment, I'm just going to comment out the tests. I mean, I will come back to them. But I just kind of want to see, okay, only one place. That's, okay. Okay, so that still works. 7 tests, 480 tests. That's still working. All right. So enumerate tests. This is find and find with type name. Okay. Front controller discovery settings. I think this is going to come up a lot. This is what I think. I don't know why these are labeled. They really didn't need to be labeled. Nope, I had a blank line there. Go away. I know it's mixed tabs and spaces. F# doesn't allow tabs. Don't know why you're labeled. Makes no sense to me. Worst part is when you're like, yeah, it makes no sense to you. You're the one who did it. Yeah, I've been using a blank space everywhere else. I should use it here. Okay. And last one. These are run a utility test. Let's go ahead and run those. See how this is working out. Okay, now I'll run. It's good. Oh, that was more than I wanted to close. Oh well. Okay, so that's half of it. Let's get rid of the other find. So we have X unit 1. So how many versions of find do we have here? We have 3. Who calls this public one? The X unit 1 tests. I kind of feel like you should also include filters. You don't know what to do with that, do you? Can't convert a method group to a lambda expression. You require a predicate of test case discovered. Predicate of test case discovered. Filter. Okay. And you would like a doc for that. The optional filters used to filter discovery messages. Okay. Okay, so now we've got front controller. Unit 2 discover should also need to get something removed from it. There's our type based filter. So the interesting thing about this one is it does leverage the fact that the remote discoverer has a version of find with a type name on it. I think I'm just going to have to let that one go for now. I'm going to leave a message here for myself. We're missing a potential optimization where we could determine that the filter is exactly one or maybe only include class filters and then call the version of find on the remote discoverer takes a type name. All right, I'll leave myself the to-do note here. Okay. So I think that's it here. Now we've got callers like TDNet, discover for a type. Settings is new. Front controller, let's say front controller, discovery settings. Settings, filters, included classes. Add the type name. Type, full name. Here we go. That fixes that one. Let's go fix the MS Build Runner. MS Build Runner might not actually have this problem. In fact, it probably doesn't. Should be just on a test now. And it's just that one test. No test methods by assembly, by type. This doesn't really matter anymore, does it? Actually, we can just get rid of this. All that was doing was making sure we called both find methods. So we don't need that anymore. Run utility tests. Can't. There are TDNet tests. I don't know that they are comprehensive enough to catch this. But we at least didn't break them. And full still works for 480. And filter still works for 7. All right, let's That's a really good soundtrack. Sometimes I forget how good this soundtrack is. All right, let's go take a look at what we did. So console runner, we made settings with our filters. We do find with the settings. We don't have filters. We have a to-do note here for metadata. I want to make sure that I put summary messages in all these. Okay, good. I don't want to check anything in with empty XML comments and forget about them. All right, so that all looks okay. MS Build Runner takes settings with filters. Good. TNet Runner, here's settings with no filters. And then, because that's discover, and then discover with a type. Puts the class in the filter. Good. And I think that was it, right? Yeah, squash up. That was it. Okay, and these all got settings. Good. Here's the new settings. Does have empty summaries on them. Exactly what I was looking for. Front controller discovery settings. Okay. Let's see. It contains information used to, let's see, run test discovery. That's good enough for now. I do want to leave it to do here. This is currently CTOR based because everything else uses factories. Are we comfortable with that design? Okay. Initializes a new instance of the front controller discovery settings class. The discovery options. The optional filters. When not provided, finds all tests. Good enough. Filters used to, let's see. That's test case filters used during discovery. That's a good one. The options used during discovery. Good enough. Go ahead and stage that. Alright, we got comments in here now. That's good. So front controller, we got rid of 2 finds and swapped it out for just a setting space find. X unit front controller. Good. X unit 1, got rid of 2 for 1. X unit 2 discovers, not a discover anymore. I think I want to merge those classes. This is actually what we're doing right now. That's the note I left myself. And instead, provide factory methods for discovery versus execution. Okay. So we got rid of 2 finds in favor of one other one with a big to-do saying this might not be optimal. And an assembly runner. Okay. I'm comfortable with this. Let's go ahead and commit this. Let's see. Move to a single filter-based find method on IFrontController. Okay. We haven't run all the tests yet in a bit, so let's go ahead and do that now. I'll take this opportunity for a quick bio break and to run an ad, so I'll be right back. Okay, looks like everything went well. Go ahead and push that up. We'll pull it over here. I don't think there's much that needs to be tested over here since we're really just touching other stuff. Actually, Unit 1 and Unit 2, which doesn't actually get run over here, so I'm not going to be too worried about that. All right. So thinking about this, in terms of settings objects, right, if I have an execution settings object, because I think, right, so we got rid of 2 finds in favor of 1. What would it look like to have uh, 1 run instead of 2? This would be like front controller execution settings. Or do we call this a find and run? Or is this run all? Let's find and run. I don't know. It's not run all, because I could pass a filter in here, right? And then the second run would have to be like what we have today. All right, so this version of find and run would be used by like the console runner. So let's go remind ourselves what that looks like today. All right, so this is currently doing, I don't need a breakpoint. It's currently doing a find. It used to do a filter here, but we're counting on the filter to get applied here. And then it does a bunch of it has a different message sync. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? But the only reason it has a discovery message sync is so that we can stash the test cases and filter them, and then pass them along to be run. So this would really, instead of having run tests of a filtered list that we got from find, instead this would be find and run, and we'd pass along the filter here. So that's how these runners would work. The Visual Studio runner, on the other hand, would call find so that it can populate its UI. Typically only used by runners which discover tests and present them into a UI for the user to interactively choose for selective run via run. For runners which simply wish to discover and immediately run tests, they should instead use find and run. Which permits the same filtering logic as this method. There's really two use cases. Find for later, find for now, and immediately run them. So find them for later, run the ones you found later. That certainly seems like the answer, doesn't it? And this requires serializing the test cases, which we already do. So you can say, here's the test cases I really wanted to run. Oh, so one of the things I went through and did was I removed optional serialization. I did it way down here somewhere, didn't I? It was probably here. Yeah, so it hasn't quite gotten into main yet, but it's way down at the bottom of dev. And now I wonder if that's the right answer. Because in the find and run case, actually that's okay, I think. Because in the find and run case, right, we don't have to actually return test cases to anybody. Right, serialization is part of test case discovered. If test case discovered doesn't need to be manufactured, then we don't need the serialization of the test case. But if we're getting to all the trouble of manufacturing test case discovered, then we will manufacture serialization. So maybe that we want to do is when we get to X unit 3, like serialization may still be an option. We put serialization here. Man, I'm really not 100% sure that I should have removed this now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that went in here that I want to keep. 68 files changed, right? That's crazy. It was a lot of files. Rolling that change back is going to be tough. All right, I'm just going to leave myself a note, and we'll just leave it for the moment, because worst case is it's performance optimization I can come back later and make. But I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commits into this. Sorry, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 commits past this one commit. And the further I get from it, the harder it's going to be to undo if I want to just like roll this out and then change it. But I think I can continue today without worrying about it. Because I don't think it's broken, I just think it's not optimal. Typically only used by runners which do not present test discovery UIs to users that allow them to run selected tests. Those should instead use find and run as separate operations. Okay. Settings used during discovery. I wonder if this should just be execution settings. It should just have all of it in it. Actually, that should just have. Maybe this should be called find settings, and this should be called find and run settings. This should be called run settings. I don't know. Seems dumb to have to make two, doesn't it? Especially since this is going to be the most common operation. Oh, Visual Studio, you're such a steaming pile of fun. I really don't know what the hell you just did. Honestly. But you clearly need to go away. Wouldn't be a live stream if I wasn't restarting Visual Studio 10 times a day. I used to yell at OmniSharp and VS Code for needing to restart, but at least when it needs to restart, it's less of a pain into my butt than this. Alright, you need to be unloaded. I don't need you anymore. IFrontController. And I'm sure this rename was just Scorched Earth Front Controller. Of course it did. And I can't undo because whatever this is fucks up the undo buffer. Thanks, Visual Studio. Yeah, so this is how refactoring works now in Visual Studio is fucking find and replace. That's great. Not that I'm angry. Some files are write protected. I don't even know what the fuck that means. Everybody just... God, you're such a... Oh my god. I'm going to end this stream here in a second. Because I'm too frustrated to go forward. Front controller, discovery settings. Front controller, find settings. No, I don't want to cancel anything. What the hell does a file as read-only even mean? Doesn't mean anything. You're stupid. You're stupid, Visual Studio. Used during test. Used by IFrontController find. Of course not. Okay, well, this is fine. Find and run settings. Let's go make a couple of these. And let's go make another one, which is just run settings. Uh, all right. Bunch of things that don't implement this yet. Implement the interface. Which probably goes right there. Oh, what? 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 Hmm. Should this be part of the run settings? It kind of feels like this should be part of the run settings. That is in fact going to be part of run settings. Find and run. And run. Here, doc. Non-impulse are fine, I think. Unit 1 is going to be missing these. Actually, all these are down here as explicit, aren't they? Shouldn't have broken anything. We'll see. Kind of want to check in the find settings one separately. Actually, yeah, I do. Let's stage that. Let's stage that. Let's stage that. Stage all of that. Yeah. This is going to have to be individually staged. IFrontController. You two are going to have to be individually staged. Unit 1, we could stage that piece. Unit 2, Unit 2 discover, we can stage. Assembly runner, we can stage. And find settings, we should stage. So I need to pick front controller. I just need to edit this because there's just no way. You can just stay the way you are, and you're good. That's all I want you to do is that. Corrupt at line 9. The hell does that even mean? Corrupt at line 9. Okay. So I don't want you to do that. Okay. Oh, that should be right. That should be it. Oh, why do you suck? Alright, IFrontController. Fine. Just that, right? That's what I tried to do! Okay. Now I can come back here and be what you wanted to be in life. Don't need you anymore. I don't need you anymore. You I need to pick. Execute front controller. That should be easier. Because I want that and not that. And I don't want that. I don't want that. And I don't want those. High front controller is find settings. Execute controller. Fine. Okay. Okay. Better. So we have find with filters. Find with a type name. Who uses this? A test. Find by types returns only method in a given type. Yeah, that isn't really a method anymore. We're gonna get rid of that. So now we've got find and we've got the real find. We've got this other find, which is a predicate-based find. This is the real implementation. Okay. You don't need a doc on you because you're explicit. It uses deserialize. Tests do. Okay. The inherit doc isn't really appropriate there, but I feel like I'm going to need a whole doc pass anyway. Okay. So that's the real find. So find and run probably needs to call the real find. And then call run. Although, like, this does a whole lot of XML transformation that's probably not, strictly speaking, necessary. Right? A big chunk of this is all about setting up these objects. Although the filters require these objects. So I guess so do we. But it would be really nice to not have to serialize here. Because the only reason I have this test case here is for serialization, basically. I'm going to use it all up and down here, but so you need to serialize. You need to serialize. I do like names when these things are just true false, because true false not super descriptive. Kind of want. Kind of want this to not serialize. All right. Kind of want to call it something else, like internal find. Everybody here uses a testable X unit 1. Yeah. Guess what? You can be protected. I like it. Okay, now I feel like if I do a find here, I have a filter. Alright, I can do it like this. Basically. Why would you include source information? You wouldn't, would you? You never would. So I think run settings looks like find settings. Find and run setting. Find and run settings looks like find settings except with run. Actually, I don't have the word test anywhere there. I don't think I really need the word test here. And then the run settings are just going to be execution options, right? You don't need filters, but what I do need instead is the list of test cases. So you should be called options. Okay. Tells me I put the wrong word here. And instead gets the list of test cases to be run. Okay. Oh. Okay. Run is going to look pretty much the same kind of a thing. Whoop. Kind of the same kind of a thing here, but we'll get to that in a minute. Alright, so there's find and run. We find. Problem is we need to know when we're done. Discovery starting, there's our callback. Because this just has all the XML in it, right? Executor enumerate tests, and that's static. Sorry, not static, synchronous. Okay, so we know this is done when it's done, except what it's doing is pushing all those into a message sync, which is not what we want to do with them. We could just stash them away ourselves. We just need to get them manufactured. Hmm. So if I move this out and don't take the message sync. All right, so if I don't take the message sync, I can't send that message, I can't send that message, and I can't send that message. Okay, so I think what I want to do then is this one should call that one, which should be that and a message sync and a filter. Although you say serialization false there. How do you say serialization false there? Because that's the test method. Okay. There aren't that many callers here. We'll go find them. Okay. So if this is the message sync message, that's part one. We do that. This should take a callback, which is an action of test case discovered. That's our callback. So we'll do that. Actually, we can just do it like that, right? And then at the end of it, we do this, which by the way means we need to try finally around that call. We go there and make sure this one is calling this one. Source information, serialization, message sync, and filters. Filters. This could be this. Could, except it really doesn't want to. Alright, well, whatever. Okay, who's upset down here? You're upset because we need a callback. Find and run. list string filter. Let's see. Filtered test case serializations. Actually, let's put this down here and use a var. And our callback is filtered add message serialization. Okay, so given that we have a find, we now need to run those, which for us could really be run for this message sync and the run settings. Run settings is a new front controller run settings. So these would be the execution options. And the filtered, we'll just call this serialized test cases. And then we want you to run. Front controller run? Is that not how this works? Wow. Rude. We may end up with a public run that we can call anyway, or a protected run. And that's called by tests. And you're protected. I wonder if you're not really the run. Run all is a run with a message sync. So we have a run with serialized and a message sync. That may actually be the run I want to call up here. Probably don't need. Yeah, it's backwards. Okay. This public version of run, also called just in tests and should be protected. Which makes me wonder why I need this one. I can just move this elsewhere. This should be like run all. Because that's really what it is run all. We're going to not impl the front controller versions now. So that those can go away. We still have way too many run methods, in my opinion. What are you? You're run with serialized test cases and a message sync. How are you different from that? You take settings. Okay, so we'll say run settings serialized test cases, message sync. Which from a sorting perspective means you sort of belong right here, right? The protected one above the explicitly implemented one. I got find and run, which is find and literally find and run. So there's the protected. And that's protected run all. So this needs to use a discovery sync run against the serialization. Part of me wants that to go away. Or it needs to just get re-implemented. What if we said find and run? Should that be a find and run? We don't have a protected find and run yet. What if we did that? Protected void find and run. What would you look like? You would be an iMessage sync for sure. Probably be an optional filter. All right. You would be this. Except this would be, let's see, filter not equal to null. No, we could do filter alarm message true. You have to be parenthesized. Is that what your problem is? Yeah. We don't care if that is that or not. Include source information. Include serialization. Okay. And this filter, where does the filter gets applied down here? Gets all the way down here, doesn't it? Almost like you don't even need the filter. I agree, you don't need the filter there. Filter can be somewhere else. Okay. Means I don't need that. What I need is this. I'm okay with this. Okay. And then we run the serialized test cases. Can't not ask for serialized test cases here. We need them to run. Right, obviously. And actually, why would you come back to why do you ask for source information here? Because you're doing a find and run. You don't care. Source information is for discovery. Okay. So I think here what we need is what I really want is I think to just be able to call find and run now. The other find and run. Yeah, I feel better about that now. I'm going to roll that up for a minute. Because it means all these explicitly implemented things that are hard to test get delegated off to the versions that are easier to test because they're protected. And they only pass along the things we care about. So same thing here. Explicit is just a pretty simple call. Roll that up. Which means what we want is a run and an explicit run. which I guess that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. And now we've got this old run all, which I don't care about yet, because whatever this old run all was is find and run. If you do a find and run without a filter, then you just run them all. And this is the old run all that's going to throw. This is some kind of a public run. Which I think probably needs to be protected. Test cases message sync. Because you're running IX unit test cases. Okay, now run all. You can come down here along with run tests. You're both now throwing not impulse. And you'll get deleted soon. So this turns serialized test cases into X Unit 1 test cases. Okay. This is the real run. We have references to this, really? A lot? Test cases are X Unit 1 test case. If we serialize them and go back, then that should be fine. How many other colors do we have, really? Yeah, my guess is all these other colors are actually calling with X Unit 1 test cases, right? Right. Which means I don't think we need this one. I think we need this one. Sort order wise, that puts this one down here. And then we do select, deserialize the test case. We're not null. Okay. Let's see. This looks like it should be okay. Hmm. Well, this is an interesting idea. I don't really need serialization here. I just want the test cases. So what if this callback didn't ask about serialization? Because I only care about serialization in one place. Let's pass back XUnit1 test cases instead. Class and namespace split apparently does not need to be done until there as well. So this is the test case test class. So now I don't need serialized test cases. Now I need test cases. You're a list of XUnit1 test case. And your test case. Problem is the filter is based on shit. Test case discovered. When I don't have a test case discovered yet. And we don't need to include serialization. So I need this as a test case to test case discovered. I can put that on XUnit1 test case. There are still times we don't want serialization though. What were you? Okay. Now I can come back here. Test case 2. Test case discovered. It's calling find right now. Just this one. Find and run is now calling this, right? Find and run calls this. Which means you don't need serialization flag. You're always getting serialization. Kind of want this to be like this, honestly. For ease of use. So this find, it just generates X-Unit 1 test cases now. Good. If filter is not equal to null, then what we need is we need the message from the test case. Except we don't want it serialized. Include is a filter of that message. Okay. So now we have run, which takes X-Unit 1 test cases and a message sync. And now we have explicit run, which is converting our serialized test cases into X-Unit 1 test cases, passing along a message sync. And we've made run all and run tests not impls. Okay. I think this is the only change I've got going on here right now, right? I didn't. Shit. All right. And we got a bunch of inaccessibles. Okay, so the things we want to make public are everything that's protected. So we have this testable X-Unit 1. Hides inherited. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. It does hide the inherited. Protected, that was the whole point, wasn't it? And then we've got our find and run. Public new. Base find and run. Test case. Nope, message sync. Filter. Turns out I don't need the optionals here. Which is fine. Because the optional can be here in the tests, because that's really where I want it. Public new void find. Filters. Okay. Let's go all the way up to the top. So if I were to roll this up now, we have find, run, acceptance test. We probably also need find and run, so we can test that behavior as well. And my guess is some of these will just get moved. All right, so find all assembly, find by assembly. Nope, just find. Returns all test methods from executor XML. Find without filters. Let's do that. Find without filter returns all test methods from executor XML. So we want here is we want find message sync. That's all we care about. No filter. Test cases use source information from source information. Okay, so this is find with source information provider. Includes serialization of test case. That's true. Discovery includes start message. That's true. Okay, so what are we missing here? We're missing a find with a filter. Write me. Public void. Find with filter only returns filtered test cases. Okay. I'm like, one thing is wrong, it's making everything go red. What is it? That's what it was. So if I pop this over to the side here, discovery includes start message. And it sort of implicitly includes a complete message because of white 1. Okay. So then everything in here needs to be tested, which includes filtering. So we basically, the optionals are source information and serialization. Although, yeah, right? And then serialization. Yeah, so we just need a filter test. Okay. So we want run test cases. Instead, what we want is test cases is test cases select. Given this test case, I want to serialize, actually. Why do we have serialization helper here, but deserialize here? Deserialize isn't public, right? It is public. So we should have a serialize as well, feels like. Stop using serialization helper, because if that's not how a serialization gets implemented, then we don't want to have to go change all these tests. Public string serialize xunit1 test case. Test case. Which right now is just serialization helper dot serialize test case. Serialize is a test case. I do feel like these should be protected though. I feel like these should be public. Serialization helper. Protected. Yeah, since you're going to be protected, I don't really feel like I need the guards. Serialization helper. Okay. Serialize. Okay. Public new base deserialize. And serialize. Public new base serialize test case. Yeah, what the hell happened there? Alright, up top. So if we want to serialize the test cases, we need to serialize them and then xunit1 deserialize the serialized test case. We're not null. I think that's probably right. You can come back over here. No, you don't need to be pinned. Test cases is an array. To array. Any reflection in one test case does not contain a where not null. So that select gives me strings. That select gives me null xunit test cases. Nullable, sorry, xunit test cases. Test cases select select where not null to array. What am I missing here? Where not null is in XUnit 3 common, which you should absolutely have access to. You're going to tell me you can't convert. Yeah. Do you really not have access to XUnit 3 v3 common? How is that even possible? I guess maybe stuff gets pulled in. Alright, so you have runner common. Runner common has XUnit v3 common. What am I missing? It's not internal, is it? Oh, it's in the XUnit internal namespace. It's got to be it. I don't know why I can't get. That's interesting. Okay, so that fixed my where not null. All right. And this is just find and run against this message spy. Spy message sync. You do need a new, right? Yeah. Find and run with a message sync. Are you not a testable? Maybe you're not a testable. Oh, you're not a testable, huh? That's because it's an acceptance test. Uh, the testable has semi-file name, config file name, shadow copy folder, app domain support. Assembly file name. I don't have a config file name. Assembly.file name. And then app domain support is app domain support required. Hmm. So find and run is an acceptance test. Interesting. All right, let's run a utility test and make sure these all pass. And then let's see what else is missing. Are you stuck? Are you slow? You feel stuck. You feel stuck. Okay. Alright. Long running test seconds. 15. How's 15? I feel like it's going to be that acceptance test. Yep. Just that one, huh? Okay. Basic name test methods still return all messages. Find and run. Finished, wait one. This is a spy message send. Committing. Okay, find and run. X Unit 1 tests, acceptance tests. Method. Actually, class is probably fine. X Unit 1 tests. Acceptance tests. Find and run on the spy. Let's go in. Let's go in. We're going to need that, and we're going to need that. That's the message sync. We don't care about that. Run find, and we say run run, and we got no test cases. Really, we got no test cases. Do I believe that? Kinda don't. We have an executor, we do enumerate tests. We don't have assembly XML. What XML did we get? We didn't get any XML. Yeah, we didn't get any tests. We didn't get any XML. That's a substitute executor. That probably means a test is wrong. How's that really an acceptance test if it's using a substitute executor? It's probably not supposed to be using a substitute executor, is it? That's why I can't use testable. So the question is now, given that, the only way to get to find and run is to cast the thing to a front controller. Does that mean I should make some of these public? Like, should these be public? Probably should be. Somebody wants a new one of these up and use it. So we need settings, which should be test framework options for execution. Oh no, we need settings, not options. New front controller find and run settings. For discovery, for execution. Discovery options, execution options. Yep, okay, good. There we go, we got some XML, don't we? Which means we got the call inside of here. Okay. I just want you to finish. Yeah, I don't care about that part. Just run. Okay. Go find and run with a filter predicate. One of the things I can do, like I realized I'm doing up test case discovery here for a filter predicate that actually has no filtering inside of it. So the version of find and run that's public settings, filters. Yeah, see, I don't have empty. I need that empty thing from my other branch. Settings, filters, filter. And you should be filter. So I need to go steal that from my other branch. Question is, where did I put it? I put it here, didn't I? Student filters. Okay, get a mother group and a what and a who. This is predicate of test case discovered. I wonder if I just put this here. Yeah. When he doesn't have to know the var? Yeah, okay. Put a comment here, why? Okay, that looks good. I'll close Visual Studio for a minute. Let's do a quick add. Apparently a format, because we can't. Visual Studio refuses to edit files without fucking carriage returns in them. Not angry. Not angry. Just daily paper cuts. So many daily paper cuts. And let's clean. Let's do. Actually, let's go ahead and open it back up. So I can rebuild it. All right. Whatever. Annotator build. Task. Okay. Go ahead and unload these because we don't care about them. But now that everybody's built, that, so we got a non-impl. Because of course, console runner is still trying to call the old run tests. And that's the other thing we really want to go change right now. And let's go do execute assembly. So we don't need you, and we don't need test assembly discovery starting and test assembly discovery finished. We're not going to be able to send those anymore. Where's this app domain option actually get used? It's just in here, right? Okay. We need find and run settings. It's going to be execution options. and filters. Can't do any of that. Can't do that. Controller, find and run. Wants message sync and settings. And settings, you can come all the way down here, can't you? Okay, that deletes a lot of code. $466. Honestly, don't remember what it used to be. 467, that's V1, but those are 67. That's approximately the right number. I'm gonna assume it's just me rearranging and maybe deleting a test or two here. Okay. V1. And now that should filter. And it ran 4. And what happens if you try and run nothing? Nothing happens. That's kind of what I thought. Nothing was going to happen. I'm sure this isn't still running. It's not. Okay. So we have this needs to live somewhere else. But I think in general, this is the right strategy. Okay. Architect Unit 1 CS. So really, the problem is if you say run and you have no test cases. Let's see, we're suppressing test assembly starting and test assembly finished here, but I don't feel like we should do that. All right. Because we need assembly unique ID, but do we really need it from there? We have assembly unique ID already, right? Is it called test assembly unique ID? Yes, it is. I feel like the if all right, this needs to come out here. And then this if needs to go here. That's my bad. So if there are test cases, then we run them. That throws, we give back an error message, and we always give you a test assembly finished. So I figure that that should probably solve this. And we should end up with no tests. Four tests. All the tests. Okay. So, V2 now going to be broken, right? Because now we're calling find and find and run hasn't been implemented on V2 yet. Okay. I'm pretty happy with where I am at the moment. I know I'm not done, but I am kind of getting tired of working on it, so I'm going to leave myself a note, which is X Unit 1 has started, has moved, find and run, move X Unit 2, then move the rest of the runners to find and run. Leave myself that note, and I think that'll do it for today. Thanks for hanging out. My apologies for having to curse at Visual Studio so much, but you know, it does things that anger me. What can I say? That's the way it is. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, and hopefully I'll see you next time.